Hello, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your textbooks for the course because a couple of you have been asking questions about it, and I want to make sure that it's clear for everybody. First, I want to point out your grammar workbook. This is for your quizzes, basically. It's also obviously for when you do your compositions, any kind of subject verb agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement, all those punctuation things, that's what you're going to get in this book. So make sure that you're reading this each week, and you don't have to wait and only read the assigned portions that week. When you have a paper coming up and you're not sure about a certain issue, you can certainly look ahead, and you can just look in the index to see what you need. Like punctuation is chapter 3. So you can always skip to chapter 3 or go back to chapter 3 and review and make sure you get all of those punctuation rules down. All right, your composition book, mine came in need of a 3-ring binder. I'm not sure how yours looked, but this is what mine looked like, the composition of everyday life. So if you look at the opening table of contents, you can see how each chapter is divided up. And each chapter has an invention section. So if you look at the chapter title, and then go down to invention, which is a subheading under that chapter title, that is where a lot of the writing help comes in for doing your pre-writing work. So for example, for paper 1, you do the remembering essay. So you would open up to chapter 24, to chapter 2, page 24, and the beginning is going to introduce you to the major concepts that you want to learn for that chapter. Then you're going to have usually 3 essays that are going to be sample essays for you to learn from. I usually assign 2 of those per chapter per week for your discussions. And then you get into the invention. And the invention is all of the ways to get you writing, to get you thinking. So there are many questions. I'm going to go ahead and open up to page 41 so that I can show you what it looks like and read to you a few examples. So for the remembering essay, here we are on page 41. This is what you would see if you looked on page 41. And there is a point of contact. So that's the first idea for how to come up with something to write about for your remembering essay, a point of contact. What do you remember most about your life with that person? You can call up the person and do an interview. You can think about the answers to these questions on your own. What was the best part of your life or the worst part? How have we both changed since then? And that really starts getting into the nitty-gritty of remembering a person from your past. You can look through a photo album or yearbook, recall an event from your past, something from schoolwork, your social life, your family life, or instead of writing about a contact, a person, you could write I would stick with a person or event, actually, stick with person or event. And then you get into the style. So writing a literary narrative. If you had read this portion, if you have read it, you'll know that the narrative is an important part of the essay. You don't want to just talk about something ad nauseum. It has to go somewhere. So when you have a narrative, you have some kind of conflict, some kind of tension that's pulling the story forward. So if you just write about the cabin that you grew up in, visiting your grandparents in every summer, and all you say is, I love that cabin. My grandparents lived in that cabin. I visited that cabin. The cabin was great. I love the cabin. My grandparents lived in the cabin. I went there every summer. It was great. You're not saying anything. You just keep saying the same thing over and over again. What's meaningful about an essay is the truth that you pull from it. There's some kind of tension there. Maybe your grandparents have passed on, or maybe they sold the cabin and now you can't go to it anymore. Maybe it's condemned, or a hurricane destroyed it, or something has happened to that cabin. Or maybe it's still there, but when you go, you don't feel the same as you used to. Something is different now. And so the remembering should bring in some element of tension. And the essay is going to really delve into that tension and say, I loved that cabin. I can't feel that the same way I did anymore. And then explore why. I can still smell the wood. I can still visit my grandparents there because they're still living. What about it has changed? Why isn't the same? And then you might pull that into the conclusion of the cabinet hasn't changed. I've changed. I've grown up. The same things that meant something to me as a kid aren't there anymore because I'm not a kid anymore. They were things that I connected to as a child. So all of that fun that I felt maybe has been tampered a little bit because now I've gotten older and I have more stress. So you can pull these different things from a story that bring meaning to a reader, because we all know what it's like to not be able, the saying, you can't go home again. It's not that your home doesn't literally exist anymore. It's that when you go home, it doesn't feel like home. Something's changed. What's happened? And the change is very rarely to do with the home itself. It's usually to do with you. Sometimes it is the place itself. Maybe it's gone. Maybe your mother completely redecorated the house and maybe you don't even have a room there anymore. So when you go home, it's the house, but it's not really your home because you don't even have a bed there anymore. So there are a lot of different tensions that you can pull from a single narrative. And then throughout that invention section, there are little like workshops and little activities that help you further ask questions about your story, your essay. And you really want to go through all of those and ask those questions, read through them and answer them to the best of your ability per your topic. And they're for every single chapter. So the title of the kind of essay that you're writing will correspond to the chapter title in the book. So for the remembering essay, if you go back to the table of contents page, you'll see it's in Roman numerals, the table of contents. Page Roman numeral 5, you see remembering who you were, chapter 2, that's the remembering essay. The second essay for the course will be the relationships essay, which is chapter 3 of the book. So if you look on table of contents, Roman numeral 5, you'll see chapter 3, explaining relationships. That's the chapter that we're going to focus on. Relationships is kind of a misleading word because we often think of relationships with people, but this is actually more about relationships with things. Your relationship with the land, as John Steinbeck says in his sample essay for this one, or your relationship with nature, or your relationship with time. You get all of these different ways that we relate to our surroundings. So read those sample essays in the chapter and then go through the invention, read all of the invention aspects and answer the questions. Answering these questions can be part of your pre-writing. It's not there to be busy work. It's there to help you be thinking and asking questions and getting into like the tension. Where is the tension in this? What do I want my reader to walk away with? That's what you really want to get to. All right, I hope this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and I will be happy to get back to you as quickly as possible.